Assalamu alaikum. Najaf Memon is here. Dear students, in the previous lecture we have learned about what is the chemical bond and why the bond is formed between the atoms. Today we will learn about that how is the bond formed between the atoms. In the 1916, two scientists gave the two concepts regarding the chemical bond. One scientist which belongs to the Germany is W. Kossel, and second one which belongs to the USA, that is known as G. N. Lewis. These two scientists gave two ideas about the chemical bond. According to the W. Kossel, atoms forms the bond by transferring of the electrons. Means one type of the formation of the bond is called the transferring of electrons. What is the meaning of the transferring of electrons? Transferring of electrons means one atom loses its electrons and other atom gains that electrons, and in this way there is the bond formed between these two atoms, and that bond is known as the ionic bond. So the concept of ionic bond briefly described here by the German scientist W. Kossel. And other concept regarding the chemical bond is that the sharing of electrons. Sharing of electrons means this type is known as the covalent bond. Covalent bond, concept of the covalent bond briefly described by the USA scientist G. N. Lewis. Here we shortly describe about the ionic bond, then how the ionic bond is formed. It is clear from the word ionic bond, then it is the bond formed between two ions. Means if we define the ionic bond simply, then it is the bond formed between two dissimilar ions. Now, in the ionic bond, question is created that what is an ion? Before explaining the ionic bond, we have to understand that what is an ion. If we simply define the ion, that any charged atom is called the ion, or any charged atom or group of atoms or the species that bears a charge, that species is known as the ion. Now we know that naturally there are the two types of charges creates. One is the positive charge and other is the negative charge. So means there are the two types of the ions. One is the positive ion and other is the negative ion. Positive ion is known as cation, whereas negative ion is known as an ion. Now again question arises that how these ions are formed, how a positive ion form and how a negative ion form, means the formation of the cations and anions. Formation of the cations or the positive ion by loss of electrons, whereas formation of the anions by gain of electrons. Means positive ion or cation formed when an atom loses its electron and atom will become stable by completing their outermost shell. And ions or negative ions formed by the gain of electrons, they also will be stable and their octet will be complete. Here we take the example for formation of the cation. Take an example of sodium metal. Sodium metal belongs to the first A group, lithium family. Second member of the first A group, lithium family, and sodium metal has the atomic number is 11. From its atomic number, we have learned that sodium has 11 protons in its nucleus and 11 electrons which revolves around the nucleus in their orbits. This is the sodium atom. This is not an ion. In atom, number of protons are equal to the number of electrons. That's why we call that atom is electrically neutral, because the positive and negative charges in the atoms are equal. Now, if we distribute electrons of the sodium in their available orbitals, this is the nucleus. First shell 2 electrons, second shell 8 electrons, and third shell is the 1 electron. From the electronic configuration, it is shown that in the outermost shell of the sodium have only 1 electron. In the previous lecture, we have learned that atom wants to be a noble, stable by completing its outermost shell. 8 electrons means atom wants to complete its octet. So there are the two choices for completing the outermost shell of the atom. One choice is that atom gains the 7 electrons and now the 8 electrons in there is outermost shell. I think which is the impossible process, that atom cannot gain the 7 electrons. Now the other choice is that atom lose this last shell's electron and this second last shell electron becomes the last shell. So this is the base choice for the sodium to lose its outermost electron. Now, as the sodium lose its outermost electrons, then this is the sodium. Here is the atomic number 11. This is the number of protons which remains the same because these are in presence in the nucleus, where now sodium loses its outermost 1 electron. Now the sodium have 10 electrons. Now here we look that there are 11 protons in the nucleus and 10 electrons in the outermost, 10 electrons in the shells around the nucleus of the sodium. So there are the imbalance of the charges. There is a 1 charge increase, that charge is the positive ion. Now if we distribute these 8 electrons in the available orbitals, we look that this is the nucleus of the sodium. Here are the 2 electrons and 8 electrons. Now the outermost shell of the sodium have the 8 electrons in its outermost shell. Now the sodium have complete its octet by loss of 1 electron. When sodium loses its 1 electron, then the proton or the positive charge, 1 positive charge increase in the nucleus. That charge is which we put on the sodium. Now this is the sodium positive. We may not call this is an atom, but this is ion or the positive ion. We may call it the cation. In this way, cation is formed. Cation is formed by the loss of electrons. Here we see that how sodium loses its 1 electron and will be a noble gas. Electronic configuration. Now take the example of the negative charge ion or anion. Consider the example of the chlorine. Chlorine which have the 17 atomic number. It means Chlorine have 17 protons in its nucleus and 17 electrons which revolves around the nucleus in their shells. If we distribute these 17 electrons, this is the nucleus. First shell 2 electrons, second shell 8 electrons, and the last shell have 7 electrons. Here we see that 17 protons are equal to the 17 electrons. It means the positive charges are equal to the negative charges. So this is called the atom of chlorine. Now, like the other atoms, chlorine also wants to be stable by completing its outermost shell. Now, like the sodium, chlorine also have the two choices. One choice is that chlorine gains the 1 electron and its outermost shell become 8 electrons and octet will be complete. And the second choice is that chlorine lose these 7 electrons and its second last shell will become the outermost shell. I think the first choice is the best choice for the chlorine for completing its outermost shell. Now these 7 electrons in its outermost shell. Now the chlorine which has 17 electrons, chlorine gains the 1 electron from the other atom. Now 17 protons will remain same because these are present in the nucleus and this does not take part in the formation of the bond, and the 18 electrons by gaining of the 1 electron. Here if we distribute these 18 electrons in the available orbital, this is the nucleus. First shell 2 electron, second shell electron, and a last shell is also have the 8 electrons. Here we look that chlorine has complete its outermost shell by 8 electrons. Now there is the imbalance of the charges. One charge is increased, with that charge is the minus charge, and we put one minus sign on the chlorine's atom. Now this chlorine minus charge particle are especially, this is not called an atom but this is called an ion, and that ion is the negatively charged and that is the anion. In this way sodium completes its outermost shell and chlorine also completes its outermost shells. Now sodium loses its 1 electron, chlorine gains that electron. In this way there is the two charges created between the sodium and chlorine, and the bond formed between the sodium and chlorine, and that bond is known as the ionic bond. Then we define the ionic bond. It is the force of attraction, or we may call it is the electrostatic force of attraction which is created between two dissimilar charges or between two dissimilar ions, meaning the cation and anion. Now here we are drawing the atoms of the sodium. This is the sodium and this is the last this is the last shell of the sodium. Here is the 1 electron in the last shell of the sodium atom, and here is the chlorines, and there are the 7 electrons in the chlorine's last shell atoms. Now sodium lose that electron and chlorine gains that electron. Here sodium will be a positive charge and chlorine will be a negative charge. Means sodium will be a cation and chlorine will be an anion. Now there is the attraction creates between these two dissimilar charges, positive and negative, cation and anion. This type of the attraction which creates in the formation of the ionic bond between the sodium metal and chlorine non-metal, or the sodium cation or chlorine anion. In this way sodium chloride, a compound is formed, sodium, we may call it sodium chloride. This is the ionic compound We may call it ionic compound because there is the ionic bond present between the sodium and chlorine ions, and this is called the sodium chloride. In this way, we have shortly described it here about the ionic bond. Inshallah, in the next lecture, we will discuss about how the covalent bond is formed by the sharing of electrons between two atoms. So, I think this is the complete. Today is enough for today is enough. Okay, thank you very much.